You just need to do what God's given you the ability to do and quit trying to be like other people, and you'll be less burnout and more. So, in January, I got the privilege of going to Korea, and I preached 13 times in 8 days to a gathering of 100 churches. It was amazing, and I've never seen that kind of hunger in people, to where I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it. I was nervous going because when I went there, they sent an email talking about all their previous speakers. You know, they'd had Rick Joyner, the guy that founded Morning Star. They'd had James Maloney, which was a healing evangelist guy. They had the machine gun preacher that went over, I don't know, all these big name guys. And then they said, "We're excited you're coming." I went, okay, Anyway, I got there and I didn't know what to think or what to expect. But after the second day, the guy who puts on the conferences said, "We want you to come back next year. We've never asked anybody to come back." Come on. And they said they saw more miracles than they've ever seen. Probably 500 healings in a week. The highlight healing was a Korean man came up with an x-ray in his hand. And he showed me it, and it had the rods in his back. He'd been in an accident, and he had rods up and down his back. He says it's in constant pain, and I just remember I touched his back, and my hand started getting hot, and I was, praying through an interpreter, so everything was interpreted. And all of a sudden, he started shouting and bending, and his stiff back that felt like a 2x4 was just normal. So I don't even know how that happened. I don't even know what that is. But I know that in that service, the pastor that hosted that 3-day conference said that night that there were 72 healings that people wrote out their testimonies. And all the faith went up from that one. So we need miracles, Then I went to Oregon, a town close to Portland. And there were so many healings in that one. But the one that stands out is a 65-year-old man who was born with seizures, and he's had seizures his whole life, and he couldn't move his hand. Like his hand, was something wrong with his hand. So he comes up, his wife pushes him up, and all of a sudden, he starts moving his hand, and his wife's crying, and it was a miracle. 65 years, frozen, and God made his nerve or muscles. I don't even know what was wrong. I went to North Carolina, and I remember the lady leading worship. There was a young teenage lady and an elderly lady, and God says, "I want you to release my power on the young lady's ankle and heal it. And when she's healed, I want her to pray for the elderly lady, and God's going to heal her feet. And when she's healed, God's going to pray for the associate pastor and heal her kidneys because she's on dialysis." And the Lord's saying that right during worship. And so I said, okay, when they were done, I called the teenager over. And I said, "Is there something wrong with your ankle?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Can I pray?" "Yeah." So she said, "Oh, that feels better." She started jumping on it. And I said, "Now, the elderly lady that was leading worship with you, there's something wrong with your feet?" And she goes, "Yeah, there is. I have real bad myopathy. My feet are burning." So I said, "You lay hands on her." So that girl laid hands on her, and that lady started stomping around. She was 70. She goes, "All the pain just left my feet." And then I said, "So now you two are supposed to pray for the associate pastor who's on dialysis." And she goes, "How'd you know that?" I said, "I don't know." But she came over, they laid hands on her, and I heard that when I got home that she's no longer on dialysis. So the word of the Lord, if we'll follow the word of the Lord, I think the most precious thing is hearing the voice of God. Yes. Don't you guys agree with that? Yes. I can't remember. I went to North Dakota, and in one service there were 42 healings. The big one in that service was a lady in a wheelchair got up, was able to walk, and she had everything wrong with her. I mean, I don't want to tell you miracle stories the whole time, but I could. God does miracles. This last week when I was in Kansas City doing an intensive, I heard the Lord give me a word of knowledge for cancer. And a lady came forward with lung cancer, and I prayed for her. And today I found out she actually works for Mike Bickle's wife in a real estate company. I found out today that she's ran a mile 4 days in a row with no shortness of breath, and she has lung cancer.
Praise the
But
Lord.
now she doesn't. And so, I don't know, God does miracles. I just wanted to tell you a few, because I think the only way that we're actually going to consistently see miracles is if we're intimate with the miracle worker. It's not a method. It's not a strategy. It's a relationship of intimacy with the God of miracles that never stops doing miracles. But if we really live one with him, everything he's doing, he'll do through us continually. And so I want to kind of preach this first sermon. When I got here today, I was sitting in my car at the hotel and said, Lord, what do you want me to preach about? And it's interesting. Last year, I counted up, I preached 411 times, which is 8 times a week. And so I don't have a shortness of sermons. I have a problem trying to figure out what to preach and what not to preach. So I'm going to preach on intimacy. Is that okay? I feel like I'm supposed to preach on intimacy in this service. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight, but I know what I'm supposed to do now. Is that okay? People always ask me, what are you going to do this weekend? Don't have a clue. I'm going to get there. But I think maybe the reason why I'm almost to 86,000 testimonies of healings.
Praise the Lord.
That people have emailed or texted or wrote letters or whatever. And I think the reason why maybe I've had the privilege of seeing that is because I realize if I'm not with him, I got nothing. So I just want to be intimate with Jesus. That's my goal. So, amen? So turn to Matthew 15. And I love this church because all I got to do is call pastor and say, hey, I'm thinking about it. And he goes, okay, come on. So it's one of my home churches. It really is. This is one of my home churches. I want to preach on intimacy. I wish Pastor was here, but he's en route. Matthew 15. I want to just tell that story briefly of the Canaanite woman. You guys are familiar with this story, right? Matthew 15, verse 21. It says, Jesus went away from there and withdrew into the region of Tyre and Sidon. And there's a reason he went there. It's because he wants to take a break. Because he can't minister to Gentiles yet. If you go back to Matthew 10, 5 and 6, he told his disciples, you can't minister to the Gentiles, just to the Jews. And so he took them into a Gentile region because he's trying to take a break. There's actually in the Gospels, the 3.5-year ministry time of Jesus, there's 13 breaks. That Jesus always wanted to get away and get filled. He didn't want to operate unless he was operating of overflow. So the rhythm is stay full. Keep on drinking. Keep on practicing Joshua 1:8. Keep on letting the word nourish you, right? So he's there. Mark 7 talks about this same story. In Mark 7, it says he was trying to hide, but he couldn't stay hidden. It's interesting. If you'll try to live a life of intimacy tucked away with Jesus for real, people will always find you. Now, if you have no intimacy and you're just trying to publicize and portray an image, you'll have a hard time getting people. But if you try to be one with Jesus, he's a people magnet. Okay. Canaanite woman from the region came up and began to cry out, saying, "Have mercy on me, Lord." This is an interesting word. Kradzo means screech, yell, annoy, be a nuisance. Basically what this lady's doing is, "Help me! Help me!" That's what the word cry out means. It's the word kradzo. It's, one scholar says it's to screech like a bird that's out of key. Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. Severely is the word kekos, which means she's so possessed, it's affecting her mentally, spiritually, and physically. In other words, my daughter's in hell. And I realize you're the only one that can get her out. So that's why she's busting into their retreat and interrupting their time. But he didn't answer her. And this is amazing. He didn't answer her. And his disciples came up when Jesus ignored her and urged Jesus, saying, "Can you get rid of her? She's shouting at us." How would you guys like somebody to walk in this service right now and just start yelling, "I need a miracle, I need a miracle"? And we try to usher them out, and the more we tried to get rid of them, the louder they'd yell. That's what this lady's doing. She's just yelling. In verse 24, it says, "But he answered and said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Now I want you to look at verse 24 just for a second. It says, "But he answered and said," but it doesn't say who he's answering. It doesn't say he's answering the disciples. It doesn't say he's answering the girl. I would like to propose to you that verse 24 is Jesus is being forced by her desperate faith to talk to the Father about changing his time sequence of when he can minister to Gentiles. I think he's got a lady that won't take no for an answer, and you can't offend her. You can ignore her. You can try to shut her up, and the more you try, the more obnoxiously, desperately loud she gets. And I think Jesus is being forced by that kind of faith to say, I know I'm only supposed to minister to the lost sheep of Israel, but I've been looking for one of these since I got down here. I haven't found anybody like this in any of my people, Papa. I know she's not one of us yet, but you see what I see. I think he's being forced to talk to the Father. It's amazing that our faith could have an effect to make the Trinity go to work to try to figure out a way to do something they're not even willing to do until you interrupt their Trinitarian peace. Let's keep going. But he answered and said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But then she came and began to bow down before him. So he ignores her. The disciples try to get rid of her. Then he says something out loud to the Father. You know, it's not even her turn yet. I get it, because it wasn't. It wasn't until 12 years later, when the sheet came down in Acts 10, that God opened up the gospel to Gentiles because of the rejection of the Jews. That's when they've got their first shot at it. You get it? This lady's pulling on the heartstrings of Jesus 12 years ahead of schedule. Can you come here a minute? You, come up here. Yeah, come here. I need you to lay on your stomach and put your hands on my foot. Lay on your stomach. Just lay all the way out flat on your stomach and put your hands on my foot. It says, after she heard him say out loud that he was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel, then she came and began to bow down. Go ahead, put your head all the way down. Put your head up. Bow down is the word proskene. It means to prostrate oneself at the feet of who you're worshiping, who you're talking to. It's to beg like a dog would beg from its master. This is the posture of the heart. This is a physical demonstration of the posture of the heart that God wants all of his churches to be. He wants his churches to be houses of proskene. He said, my house will be called a house of this. That's what this word bow down is, what he's doing here. You get it? This is the most powerful position in the church. The highest position in the church is the feet of Jesus. Are you guys getting this? Some of you can't see it. I wish you could see it. I didn't ask him to help me, but you're going to help me more than this time. He's limber. I was looking for limber. Okay, you can go back to your seat. I just wanted you to see it. She began to bow down before him, saying, Lord, help me. Yet he answered and said. Now, it doesn't say who he's talking to. Listen, it doesn't say. Look, it says, and he answered and said, it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to little dogs. This lady's begging like a dog. But he's not talking to her, because I want to prove it to you. Because look, then she said, yes, Lord, but please help, for even dogs feed on the crumbs that fall from their master's table. So she's saying, I don't care. I know you're the only hope for my daughter. So you can ignore me. You can have your guys try to get rid of me. You can say it's not my turn. You can even say I'm acting like a dog. I can't be insulted because I know you're my only hope. And then verse 28, it actually says who Jesus is answering now. Then Jesus said to her. So I think he's been having this intense conversation with the Father, saying, Father, I know we're not supposed to offer the gospel to the Gentiles for 12 more years, but I'm changing the rules. I haven't found anybody with this kind of desperation for just me. And after the conversation's complete, then he answers her. Then he said to her, O woman. Now the word O is what we would call a vocative, because the Greek language doesn't have like exclamation points and stuff, but they have vocatives. And so O would mean, wow. Wow! Whoa, woman! Whoa! 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 That's what O means. Do you get it? Oh, woman, your faith is mega. Her faith is mega. Great. It'll be done for you just as you desire. In other words, your daughter's already healed. You wowed me, but you can have anything you desire. That's what intimacy will get us. Come on, John 15:7, abide in me until my rhema abides in you. Have whatever you want. Abide in me. Abide in me. I've been preaching a series on my Zoom calls that I'll never end on in Christ verses. There's 180 verses about being in Christ. That's all I can talk about now. We're in Christ. We're not trying to get into him. We're in him and he's in us. We're inseparable. And I want to believe it in my head. Amen? So there's the first example of intimate desperation. Then I want to go to Mark chapter 3. Mark chapter 3. And I want to start with verse 13. And then he went up on the mountain and he summoned those whom he himself wanted. And they came to him. And he appointed 12 so they would be with him. The two become one. He called his disciples, then he appointed. The word appointed is a same interchangeable word for anointed or empowered or equipped or solidified, backed up. There's a lot of different words. The first thing he gave them power for, he wants them like this with him. He wants intimacy. He doesn't want us to go around casting out demons, doing miracles, preaching, and then at the end he says, I never knew you. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want us just using the power of his word. He wants intimacy with him. Do you guys get it? Come on, somebody just shake your head. Okay. So the first thing he gives us power for is to be with him. And then he sent him out to preach and to have authority to cast out demons. So The authority that makes demons know who you are is being intimate with Jesus. You guys get that, right? The sons of Sceva, they were trying to cast out demons with a method because they saw Paul doing it. And they got beat naked and stripped naked by demons in one guy. 7 guys got stripped and beat by one guy's demons. And the demons said, we know Jesus, we know about Paul, but who are you? If you're intimate with Jesus, they know who you are. If you're intimate with Jesus, the demonic world knows who you are. If you're name dropping in the name of Jesus, they don't know yet. But if you're one with him, you get it? Can I keep going? Can I keep preaching? Mark chapter 16. I'm going to use you again, buddy, in a minute, okay? Mark chapter 16, verse 14. Later he appeared, I love this. This is the disciples commissioned. Later he appeared to the 11 disciples as they were reclining at the table. So they were having a potluck. Do you guys have potlucks? Because I've been here 4 times, and every time I've been here, you guys have Cane's chicken. Is that your potluck? I mean, I love Cane's chicken, but potlucks are all kinds of stuff, right? Anyway, you just don't know what you're getting. Sometimes you're lucky. Anyway, he appeared to the 11 at the potluck, and he reprimanded them for their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had not believed those who had seen him after he had risen from the dead. You know, if you're not intimate with Jesus, you're going to have a hard time believing other people's stories of what happens because they're intimate with Jesus. In fact, you'll get offended at other people's stories. You say, you need to prove that. And so the lack of intimacy forces us into carnality, which means we need verification with senses because we're not in the spirit, because he's intimate with us, not in the flesh, in the spirit. If you're not intimate with Jesus, you're going to be nothing but carnally opposed to what happens when you're one with God. Does that make sense? Yes. I'm preaching the truth here. Can I keep going? He said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. So I think we can preach to anything that's created. Would you guys agree? I think the commission here is you can preach to dogs, cats, horses, anything. I know Wesley laid hands on his horse, John Wesley, once. His horse was lame, and he laid hands on it, and God healed the horse. He got back on it and rode on. Like, you can preach the gospel to horses. I don't know if you should preach to cats. I like dogs. Don't get mad at me if you have a cat. Don't come up and say anything. I just don't trust them. I think when you sleep, they come up and they try to steal your air. I don't know if that's true. It's stupid. Don't listen to it. One time, I was driving a new Suburban I had, a brown one. And I was in Dallas doing a revival, and the air conditioner went out on it, and it was 110 degrees. And I remember it was a Saturday, and there was no places open, and I was just dying. And I pulled into a Shell station underneath a shade thing, gas up, and I said, Lord, what am I going to do? And it occurred to me, why don't you just lay hands on it and heal your car? And I went, that's stupid. But it was created. Yeah. Somebody made that car. Yeah. So I couldn't lay hands on the hood because it was too hot, it burned my hands. So I laid hands on the steering wheel. In Jesus' name, I command you to work, air conditioner, and I started the car up and it worked. It never had a problem again. Come on. So I don't know. He says, preach the gospel to all creation. The one who believed and has been baptized will be saved. So it's a pretty powerful gospel, right? But the one who has not believed will be condemned, and these signs will accompany those who have believed. So the word preach, this is where I need help. I need help. Come up here for a minute, buddy. The word preach, I just want you to sit here by me on the ground. Just sit here and face the crowd, but get real close to me. Yeah. The word preach is this word caruso, which is a messenger, a caller. In the time of Jesus, kings would have people stationed in the crowd because they didn't have PA systems. And so whatever the king or the military commander or whoever would say, these carusos would repeat it out loud. But the root word of caruso is the word carex. Carex. It's an interesting word. A carex is one who would sit at the feet of a king until he learned his word perfectly. And he wouldn't just know the word, he would know the emotions and the passion behind the word. He would actually know why he's saying it, why he liked certain things to happen, why he didn't want things to happen. In other words, a carex, which is the root word of preach, would never have the liberty to commentate on the king's message. In other words, all he could do is say what he's saying and not try to explain what he's saying. This is important because most preachers are not carexes. Most preachers are trying to explain to people why what the word says isn't happening. And they inadvertently make up watered down theologies trying to make people comfortable in a reality that's less than what the word says should be our reality. That's not a carex. A carex can only say what the king says. So he can't leave the private place next to the king until he actually becomes the message. It's like Paul said in 2 Corinthians 3, we're living epistles. A carex is the word made flesh, and he's an exact replica of the message. It's the power of intimacy. Do you get it? You can go sit down. Thanks, buddy. I'll pay you later, I promise. So check this out, you guys. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. The one who's baptized will be saved. The one who doesn't believe will be condemned. These signs will follow. I love that little word, will follow. Parakalutio. It's a neat word. Parakalutio. Para is the prefix where we would get parasite. So this Jesus is saying, if you'll become my carex, or I can let you leave our private time, because I anoint you first to be with me, so then I can send you out with an anointing to get rid of demons and heal the sick and bring the kingdom. But you got to do this first. You got to be the carex first. You got to be intimate first. If you'll do that, when you go out, these signs will stick to you like a parasite. You'll never have to worry about signs backing up my word when your word becomes my word. That's what this word will follow means. Parakalutio, you don't have to look for signs. The signs will stick to you if all you're doing is becoming the message. It's the power of intimacy. I'm preaching really good. This isn't emotional, you guys. It has nothing to do with how you feel. It has to do with what you believe. So I'm just not feeling it. Who cares? I can't find a verse where how you're feeling has anything to do with it. If you would just believe. In fact, I think your belief carries way more weight when you're not feeling it. There's no faith when you got the winds at your back. Faith means something when everything's coming against you and you say, well, I must be crazy because I'm still believing. Are you guys happy? This is a pretty quiet crowd today. I'm easing into this. Amen? These signs will accompany those who have believed, not those who perform, not those who work harder, those who believe. And they'll speak with new tongues, they'll cast out demons, they'll pick up serpents. If they drink deadly things, you can eat at McDonald's if you're a carex and live long. That's good news, man. I had McDonald's today. I'm alive. Yay. Poison will not harm them. They'll lay hands on the sick and they'll recover. I've had almost 86,000 testimonies. I haven't healed one of them. I'm a carex of the one who always heals if he has a vessel to flow through that doesn't impede his progress. Can I keep going? Is this good? Is anybody happy? Luke chapter 10, you guys know this one. Everybody knows Mary and Martha. Luke chapter 10, how can you not talk about intimacy unless you talk about Mary and Martha? First of all, I think Martha gets a bad rap. I think we need lots of Marthas that can cook 7 to 12 course meals. And the roast beef is perfect. The creamy corn, the peas, the potatoes, the salad's cool, the jello's firm, the iced tea's perfectly sweet, the shrimp cocktail's cold and crunch. I think it's a modern day miracle when you can put 12 courses out. We need more Marthas. I'm tired of people in devotionals giving Martha a bad name. Okay, that's my spiel on that. Now, as they were traveling along, I don't think Jesus went there for Mary. I think Jesus liked the house because of Martha. He liked to eat. Now, as they were traveling along, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home, and she had a sister called Mary who was also seated at the Lord's feet, which means Martha used to. Now she's too busy. And was listening to his word. Martha was distracted with all of her preparations, her ministry. And I think the thing that takes people in the church out of intimacy most is ministry. Ministry should never be for God, ever. It should always be from God. You can't burn out if you're flowing from God. You'll live constantly in need of ministry if you're trying to do anything for God. I'm preaching good. You can't burn out flowing from God. You never stop being burnt out if you're trying to do things for God. How many ways can I say that? I talk to ministers all the time. I'm dying. Why? Well, I'm doing this. That's your problem. Why don't you stop doing anything until he does it through you? Then it'll energize you instead of take your energy. I mean, the last verse of Colossians 1 says, Paul's laboring with the power of God that labors through him. It's not his power. It's the power of the Spirit that labors effectively through him. God doesn't get tired. You know, it says in Isaiah 40, he never gets tired. So Isaiah 62, and it says, don't give him any rest. It's kind of a play on words. He's not tired. He wants us to stay awake. We're tired. He's buzzing. Do you get it? And so Mary's just sitting. Come here, buddy. Come here. I want you to sit right here and put your head on my knee. Because this word, just lay right there, this word has a couple of different definitions. One could be up against the shin, the knee, or laying the head on the feet. It's a posture of humility. It's kind of a cross between Mark 3, to be with him, Matthew 15, to be prostrate at the feet, or Mark 16, the carex. What Mary's doing, the expositors say it could be a little of what all three of those look like. So she's like displaying humble, desperate, I don't want nothing but to be in the cascade of every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Father, because all Jesus says is what he hears the Father say, and life's in the voice. And she's found the waterfall of life, right? So she's just, wherever the word is hitting the most, rapid fire, that's where she's positioned. And the Gospels is always talking about her as the hero. And they say, well, we need some Marthas. Nothing's going to get done. Well, I get it. But you can go sit down. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm going to keep using you. I'm not done. I was looking for a kid when I walked in, and I'm happy. I didn't want to ask Jared to come up here and do that. It'd be hard for him to get up, you know. Martha's being drug around with her circumstances. And I've been to houses in trailer courts where we got a bowl of soup and a bologna sandwich, and it was some of the best memories I've ever had. And I've been in $1 million homes on $50,000 dining room tables with china, and everything's perfect, and it's so tense you can't eat. And I'd rather have a bologna sandwich with a good spirit and atmosphere than a 12-course meal for a king where everybody's on eggshells because the spirit's like everybody's distracted. You say, well, how do you know when you're distracted? When you're mad at people and God. She walks in. Now, there is stress because she's feeding Jesus and the 12 disciples, so she's got 13 preachers in her house. That would be stress. And she's got a big crowd of preachers. Of course, Lazarus is there. He always got free food. Lazarus had it made, man. Like, I can't find one thing in the Bible that he did except come back from the dead, but he was the brother of the two ladies that Jesus loved. So it pays to know somebody that Jesus loves. You get it? Okay. But anyway, it's a pretty good crowd, and you can tell Martha's distracted by, she walks right in there in the middle of everybody who's in there waiting for the meal and says, Jesus, can't you tell my sister to help me? Like she could have come up and whispered in Mary's ear. She just said it out loud. That's a clue you're probably trying to do too much. Some people can do 12-course meals. My grandma hand covered. My dad's mom, holy smokes, could she cook? Sometimes she was in a wheelchair her last 30 years. She had a little dog, a little brindle, some kind of ugly dog, smelled breath, smelled ugly, ugly dog. But we would go to church. We'd come home. She'd have pies, cookies, homemade noodles and chicken. During church, she'd whip up 10 things. Some people can do 7-course meals and not get distracted. Other people can only do a bologna sandwich. You just need to do what God's given you the ability to do and quit trying to be like other people, and you'll be less burnout and more full.
Come on now, that's it.
You get it? And some people look at me and say, how do you preach 8 times a week and not get burned out? And preaching actually energizes me. Like, I feel better now than I have in the last 24 hours. Like, I'm buzzing again. Because he's coming. He's coming. I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it from him. You get it? Don't try to be me. Be who God's made you to be. That's intimacy. Intimacy is not trying to replicate somebody else. It's trying to let God be himself in you. Amen? So, Jesus, don't you care that my sister's left me to do all this serving by myself? Can you tell her to help me? But the Lord answered and said to her, Martha, Martha. And anytime he says something twice, it's because he loves you. He'd be like, Candace? Candace. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Jared? Jared. He wants our attention, and he wants us to know he loves us. He wants our attention because he wants us to know, I'm not mad at you for being distracted, but there's something better. There's intimacy. Intimacy is always better.
Yes.
Do you get it? Come on, do you guys get it? When I called Ken to come here, he said, oh, we're having a wedding and people are going to miss. And I said, I don't want to come for a crowd, Ken. I'm not here for a crowd. I'm here because the Lord told me it was time. Like, it's so easy to come from God. It's just easy. Do you guys get it? What's crazy is the more I've tried to do less, now I'm preaching to nations. I'm on TV in India 7 times a week now. And my audience reach is 15 million people. In my living room, from my prayer room at my house. In shorts. It's a miracle. Come on. We do crusades in Pakistan with 20 and 30,000 people. I mean, people are miracle. We're getting stories all the time. We're putting water wells in Pakistan and India and Africa, and people are getting saved. All villages are being saved. And I'm not trying to do anything except be intimate. I want to be intimate with Jesus. Does that make sense? Does anybody hear me? I'm glad everybody's being quiet because that's what intimacy produces usually. Martha, Martha, you're worried and distracted by many things. Only one thing's necessary. Mary chose it. It's the good part. The banquet table feast. It's the banquet portion. She chose the good part. Mary chose to allow 2 Peter 1:3 into 4 to be her lifestyle. Because when you feed on the promises of God, it leads you to partake on the nature of God. If that's all you want, is to stay in the Word, eventually it'll lead you to the living Word, and the divine nature will be all that you're feasting on in a lifestyle of intimacy. Amen. Can I keep going? Somebody say, keep going, Dan. Look at Exodus 24. Exodus 24. I got to throw some Old Testament verses in here so Jared will be happy. Exodus 24. 12. Exodus 24:12. It says, now the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and stay there. And I'll give you the stone tablets with the law and the commandments which I have written for their instruction. So this is interesting. Stay there is an interesting phrase. Jared would verify this. Many scholars think the phrase stay there actually insinuates this needs to be your place of existence. Not a place you visit, a place you never leave. Stay there. And then it also means to be so at rest in his presence to actually fall out in his presence. I love some of the scholars on my Logos program that they use such beautiful flowery word pictures, but it actually means to be so at home in his presence that you fall out in awe and rest at the same time. Stay there until you become at home there in his presence. And after you become one and at home in his presence, then you go down and give instruction. And that's an interesting phrase. It means your life becomes a lifestyle of impartation. Without having to say it, without having to touch people, if you become one with him in rest and worship and intimacy, then everywhere you go, his life imparts through your life to others. Your life becomes a lifestyle of impartation. In other words, it actually means my life transfers what I've received as a possession and I release it as a lifestyle. It's like Peter and John at the Gate Beautiful. What I have, I give to you. They didn't have to work that up. They'd been so at home being one with Jesus. What I have, I give to you. And the guy gets up. 40 years crippled, man. Come on. That's intimacy. That's to flow down from, not do something for. I want it. I want this. I don't want it to be a sermon. I want it to be real. Amen? Jesus said in Matthew 10:8, as you go, as you go. In other words, once you're one with me, as you go, heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out, as you go, be so at home in my presence that as you go, your life is an impartation of my presence. Intimacy. I'm preaching on intimacy. The two becoming one. Do you get it? Deuteronomy 33:12. You don't have to go there, but you can. It's just talking about Benjamin is the one who dwells between my shoulders. Benjamin is an Old Testament prophetic picture of John 14:12. Anybody who believes in me, the same things I do, you'll do in greater. Come up here. Benjamin's second name was son at my right hand. His first name was Benomai, I'm dead. Dad changed the name to Benjamin, son at my right hand, which is a type and shadow of Jesus. Benjamin dwells between the shoulders. So if this is God and I'm Benjamin, I live here. I live into his heart. And that's why John 1, Yes, John 1:18, no one has ever seen the Father except the Son who makes him known because he's in his bosom. Jesus' life was, I'm so at home in the Spirit up here, come up here, that everything I do flows from this reality, and that's the exegesis of what the Father's like. My life is the impartation of Papa because I live in intimacy. Benjamin is the one who dwells between the shoulders, but John 14:12 says, if anyone believes in me, the same things I do, you'll do in greater. So the word in is the prefix eis, which is this. It's if this is the source of what I'm trying to be like, because out of the heart flow all the issues of life. So the heart of Jesus is the issue of every life in the universe. It comes out of the heart of Jesus. Then my faith pursuit should be, I got to get closer. That makes sense. That's why you said that. That's why we don't do. And when you're so full, you just go and do what he does in greater because your reality is, I'm in him. I'm faithing into him. Do you guys get it? You can go sit down. He's amazing, isn't he? Is he amazing? Can we thank God for that? I love that. I got a friend closer than a brother. I love that. It goes along with what I'm preaching. Anyone who believes in. Now that's a different prefix than the 180 verses of in Christ, because to believe in has to do with direction, focus, vision. It's different. To be in Christ or in Christ it's a preposition of position, not direction. Once you're born of the Spirit, you're not trying to get in the Spirit. Your spirit and his spirit are in each other already. The picture is a sponge. When I preach my verses on in Christ, I have a sponge that's dry and I have a Tupperware thing of water. And I put the sponge up against the Tupperware and I say, now this would be the preposition ice. He's trying to get in the water. But our real position in Christ is, and I put the sponge submerged in the water. We're submerged in him. He's submerged in us. Our life, if we really believe it, we just drip him wherever we go. That's intimacy. And the more things that hit you that are violent, the more of him that squeezes out of you. Come on, sickness, disease, financial lack, betrayal, slander, gossip. No matter what hits you, when you're in him, it just makes him spill out. Amen? Can I keep going? Can I keep going? John 17:21 says the kingdom of God is in you. In you. In you. excuse me, John 17:21 says, Father, make them one with us just as we are one. Jesus' prayer is that we'll actually believe we're one with God. He wants us to believe it. Come on, he wants us to believe that. And look at Ezekiel 43, just for a minute. Ezekiel 43. Ezekiel 43. Verse 5, and the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner courtyard, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. Then I heard him speaking to me from the house, while a man was standing beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I dwell among the sons of Israel forever. And the house of Israel will not again defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their prostitution and by their corpses of their kings when they die. So these verses show me that where God's glory empties heaven and fills the earth is where the soles of his feet are comfortable resting, where he's welcomed. And every one of these things I've showed you so far from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are somebody trying to get to the feet. Because when he's comfortable standing in dominion in a place where he's worshiped and adored and trusted, that's where his glory pours out. Amen. The power of intimacy. Are you guys getting this? Am I going slow enough? I'm trying. Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do the will of my Father. And they said, well, wait a minute, we prophesied. We did miracles. We preached. We cast out demons. And then he looks at them and says, away from me, workers of evil. We were never intimate. I never knew you. We weren't intimate. Whoa. Is that a legal verse in a Baptist church?
Yes.
I think it is. It's in the Bible. God's not impressed with what you're doing. I think the only success in the kingdom is being intimate with the King. God's not impressed with how many miracles I've seen. He's only impressed if I'm intimate with him. Are you guys getting this? It's pretty sober. I like Matthew 6:6. It says, come into the room and close the door and talk to me in secret. And what we talk about in secret, then I'll reward you in public. Come into the room. Close the door. Isaiah 26 says that come into the room and shut the door until indignation passes. I think COVID was the global invitation for the bride of Christ to get intimate, and most of them missed it. Most of them were Martha'd. Instead of come in the room and shut the door, this is an invitation for us to become what I've always wanted. Do you get it, you guys? The word room is the word tamion, or bedchamber. Now, before you get weird, God doesn't want physical touch. He doesn't want sexual anything. He wants intimacy where our spirits are one. He wants oneness, to where you react the same way, you think the same way, you respond, you do, you believe, you talk. All these pictures become our reality when we're in the room with him. Do you get it? Last verse, Ephesians 3:17, last verse. There's an end to this sermon. Did I use enough scriptures?
Yes.
I'm thankful Jared's here. He's encouraging me. I want to read Ephesians 3:16 and 17. So this, that he would grant you according to the riches of his glory to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner self, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you would be being rooted and grounded in love. And so God gives us the Spirit so we're strengthened, right? And that's why Paul always wanted to give impartations to people so the Spirit would come on them so they would be strengthened, because the Spirit strengthens us. Okay? He's our helper. He's our comforter. He's our healer. He's our strength. You get power from the Spirit, right? So we need the impartation continually of the Spirit. The end result is that we would be grounded in love, rooted in love, because love has no fear, no unbelief, no doubt. Love can't fail. The goal is to be stuck in love. The best word picture I can come up with on grounded in love would be if they were pouring a big driveway out there and it was wet concrete and you walked out and got in it and stood there until it got hard. Then you can't get out of it. That's God's desire for us. He wants us stuck in love. He wants us stuck in intimacy. That's his goal. He doesn't want us coming and going. He wants us stuck. Do you get it? But I love the verse. It says, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts. I love that. And I've used this example. I'm going to use it again to close this first session. May dwell in you. So we get the power of the Spirit. The end result is that we're stuck in love. We never can get out because we don't want to. But the process by which that happens is that our life becomes the place where Jesus can live and be himself in us. That's the goal. He wants us to be a place he moves into and he actually can just be himself. And so here's an example. Let's say I want Jesus. And so he comes to my house and knocks on the door and says, I heard you want me. And I go, I do. I want all of you. He goes, well, good. I want all of you too. And so he comes in and I say, well, make yourself at home. He goes, don't worry, I will. Because he does. Because this word dwell in means to be yourself. Jesus can do the same things through us if he can be himself in us like he was himself in his own body. He's the same.
Yes.
So he moves in, he goes, okay, I want the master bedroom. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, it's a better bed. And he says, you told me I could be myself, right? And okay, Jesus, I didn't know that, but yeah, if you want the master bedroom, great. So we're in the guest room. That's fun. Hard bed. And I noticed the first morning when we're trying to act like we're asleep when we can't because the bed's not comfortable, at 4 o'clock in the morning we hear Jesus crying out to the Father really loud, like loud. So I walk in there and he's just, tears are flowing and he's crying out like there's nobody else in the house. And I come up and I tap on the shoulder. I say, Jesus, 4 o'clock? Are you serious? Oh yeah, we have a standing appointment every day. This is when we meet to start the day. Well, we're trying to potty train our dog, Jesus, and we don't want him to start crying till the sun comes up. It doesn't come up for 2.5 hours. What do you do? He says to me, you told me that I could be myself. Yeah, but I didn't know you were serious. I thought I could just incorporate you into my life and I could benefit from your strong points. I didn't know I had to let you become my life. Okay, Jesus. And so the next morning I'm already awake because I know he's going to do it. So he's crying out, and I'm just crying out with him. It's kind of contagious. Well, then he goes, I'm hungry and you don't have any good food. And I said, what do you mean? I got turkey sticks. I got Atkins bars. I got fruit, Skinny Pop, all the good healthy diet food. And he says, where's your sweets? I went, what do you mean? He goes, I like sugar. I like cake and cookies and ice cream. And we need to go to the store. And he goes, can you take me to the store? He can fly, but he wants me to take him to the store. So we get in the car and we go to the store and we're going through, and he doesn't want anything healthy. All he wants Twinkies. I said, Jesus, do you know what's in Twinkies? He goes, I'm not worried about that. I eat whatever I want. I don't ever get sick. Okay, so he wants cookies. He wants candy. We have a whole shopping cart full of sweets. And I'm obese. And he's skinny. And so everybody's looking at me like, I want it. I don't want it. So everybody's staring at me. They stare at the big people. And there's a skinny person next to me, and he wants all the junk food. So I'm just giving him what he wants. He wants to be himself. So we're going through the cash register now. We're paying. And the lady is looking at me because I'm the heavy one. And he's in his robe, real thin. And she looks at me, somebody have a sweet tooth? And I go, she goes, right. She does this to Jesus. So anyway, I'm embarrassed. All I can think about is what people are thinking, and Jesus whispers in my ear, hey, ask that lady if you can pray for her son and her daughter. Her son's on drugs, her daughter's real sick. Just ask her if you can pray for her. And I say to him, how do you know that? And he chuckles and he goes, I'm God. Ma'am, can I pray for your son and your daughter? She goes, how do you know I have a son and a daughter? And I know one of them's in trouble and the other one's really sick. And she goes, who are you? How'd you know that? Are you a cop? I said, no. I have a new house guest that likes sweets and told me I should pray for your kids. She goes, they need it bad. So I reach over and pray for the kids, pay the bill. As I'm trying to leave, she runs out from behind the cash register just bawling and hugs me. And she goes, thank you. And as we're walking out, Jesus is smiling, eating one of the desserts before we even get to the car. And he says, wasn't that fun? And I said, that was amazing, Jesus. He goes, we could do that all the time if you just let me be myself. I hear Dad tell me stuff about everybody. I just need somebody I can tell. So we get home, put up the sweets. I noticed he did his laundry and he didn't want to use the dryer, so he put all of his clothes on all the chairs around the dining room table. And we're having company that night. And I said, Jesus, we don't put clothes on the dining room chairs. We use the dryer. He goes, well, I don't like it. Dries the stuff out, makes it shrink, and I like it to fit. And okay, Jesus, you can be yourself. And so the company comes over, and he goes, you can move it right when they walk in, but I want it to be dry first. And okay. So we have a good dinner, and Jesus eats mostly sweets, and he's skinny. I guess it pays to be Jesus because you have a perfect metabolism. Anyway, that next morning, I'm up at 4, and he's crying out, and we come in, we're drinking coffee. He likes coffee. Jesus likes coffee. And we have this beautiful glass coffee table in our living room. He doesn't wear shoes. He wears sandals, so his feet are kind of grimy a little bit. He puts them up on the glass table, and I'm just looking at him, because there's smudges. And he goes, "Why are you looking at the smudges on the table?" He knows what I'm thinking. It's just not fair, because he knows what you think. I said, "Never mind, just smudge it up. We can Windex it. It's not a problem." He goes, "I know. Lighten up. You're way too uptight." Good point. Your neighbor, not the one across the street, but the one catty-cornered, she recently lost her husband. I said, "How'd you know?" "Never mind." "Yeah, she did. You ought to take her a check. In fact, I want you to take her $1,000 right now." And I said, "Jesus, how do you know I can afford that?" Are we going to go there? Okay. So I walk over to her and knock on the door, and she comes to the door, and I say, "How you doing?" She goes, "It's been rough. In fact, I'm maybe on the verge of losing my home." And I said, "Well, here's $1,000. And she starts bawling. She hugs me. She goes, "How'd you know? How did you know?" "Oh, I have this house guest. He told me you needed it." And she goes, "I can't believe it's like the perfect timing." And she goes, "Who is your house guest?" "It's Jesus." She goes, "Do you think he'd want to move in with me?" That's what that verse in Ephesians 3:17 means. That Christ may actually be able to be himself in you. Because if he could be himself, the results of your life would be the results of his life. And that's the power of intimacy. Yay. Yay. So it's not sing another song, yell a little louder, and I love all that. It's not memorize more verses. It's not spend more time fasting. It's letting Jesus be himself in you until you become comfortable with him being himself in you. Because when you become comfortable with it, that's when the two become one. What a great message. It's awesome. So can I just pray that tonight and tomorrow that this would be a room where everybody's so one with Jesus that every single thing that he wants to happen will happen through his body because we're intimate with him. Is that a good prayer? I want to pray that before we leave. Can I do that? Tonight we'll do ministry. We'll go for miracles. But I want to do it out of intimacy, not out of let's do miracles. I want to do what Jesus wants, and he's a miracle worker. Yes. Amen? Yes. So, Papa, thank you for this day. Thank you for the Father's house. Thank you for these beautiful people that are assembled on a Saturday because they want to become more like Jesus. Thank you, Holy Spirit, that you are love and you're patient and you never get tired of helping us to become like Jesus. It's your desire for us to become like Jesus. So Jesus, I drove through all these new apartments and condominiums and retail stores and all this booming area. I thought, what would it look like if somebody walked around here that was one with Jesus? So whatever there is in our lives that keep us from your feet, that keep us from your heart, that keep us from your chest, that keep us from your legs, that keep us from the room, that keep us from your face, that whatever there is that keeps us from intimacy, just give us some courage, man, to get rid of it. Give us courage to let go of anything lesser that keeps us from the greater. Lesser loves, lesser joys, lesser satisfactions. Lord, give us courage to let go of everything that keeps us from holding on to you. We want to be intimate. So thank you. Thanks for helping us. We love you. Amen.